guys, welcome back to the channel. We are back with another video, the CSS course for beginners. Next, let us see about the syntax, how it is going to work, what will be the syntax, how we are going to write the properties. First, you need to add the selector. A selector is an HTML tag at which a style will be applied. This could be any tag like h1 or a table. H1 table or any tag you can take. It can be the paragraph tag. We have seen so many multiple tags, right? So it can be any of the tags. So that will be known as a selector. Next, a property is a type of attribute of an HTML tag. Put simply, all the HTML attributes are converted into CSS properties. They could be color, border, etc. Now whenever we have studied our HTML properties, in our HTML properties we have seen about the table tag. For these table tag we have seen so many attributes like height, width, background color you can say, or the background property. So these attributes are termed as properties here, but here they have certain specific values. So now let us see what is a value. Values are assigned to properties. For example, color property can have the value either red or hash f1 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 or hash f. So what is this hash ff? This number, these are called as hexadecimal color codes, which we will be seeing in the next slides. So this is how you can write your syntax. So first you need to add your selector, then you need to write the property, and then you need to write your value. This is how we have just seen the paragraph tag just in the previous example, that is paragraph, open, the property that you are giving is the color, and then the value that we gave was red. So this is how we wrote it. And remember, if there are multiple properties, then you need to separate it with the semicolon after each property. Next, you have types of selectors. There are type of selectors in the CSS. The first is a type selector. Now what happens in this type selector? Always you can write the tag followed by the property. You can directly use the tag name here, and then you can write your property for that particular tag, which will be called as a type selector. The second one is called as the universal selector. In this universal selector is if you are writing a particular document. Now inside this particular document there will be some elements for which you have to give the same styling. So for those things you can use the star, and all such properties will be written inside this universal selector. For example, you can see here I have written star, color red. Now in this particular document, whichever text will be there, everything will be colored in the red because it is universal. The third type of selector you have is the descendant selector. What do you mean by this descendant selector? Now think that there is a division. Inside this particular division, there are multiple paragraphs. So these all paragraphs are the descendants of this particular division. Now for all those paragraphs, I have given the background color to be as pink. So all the paragraphs which are going to come under this division, those will be given as a pink. Now let us see these three types of selectors in our Visual Studio Code. Let me just clear it here, and all we are going to style in our styles.css. So first HTML, basic HTML page. Inside this HTML page, we have the body section over here. First will be the normal paragraph. I'm just going to write the paragraph here. This is the first paragraph. In the same way, I'm also going to write multiple paragraphs. 2, 3, 4. And keeping the third descendant selector as well, I'm just going to divide these paragraphs into a division. This will be the first division here, and this division is going to end here. Save it. Just going to move them inside and I'll save it. So this is the first paragraph. This is the second paragraph. Save this. Now when I'm going to style with the paragraph tag, paragraph color is to red. I'll save this. One thing why it is not showing, because we have not linked it. So all we need to do is use our link tag. Now you can see all the p tags that are there, they are being colored in red. So this is called as the first selector, that is the type selector. This is the type selector. Then the next type of selector, that is the universal selector. I'm going to comment down this as well. Whenever you're using a universal selector, it is going to be having a star. That is, even if there are n paragraphs or even if there are n elements of, then all will be having the same property. For example, I'm going to give the property of a font size or font family. Usually the font family will be the same for the multiple pages of your software or your application. So I'm just going to give here as cursive. Now you can see that all the things are same. All the paragraphs are having the same font family. Next we have division, that is descendant selector. Now what I'm going to do is descendant. Okay, for the paragraphs of the division, for only the paragraphs of the division, the background color I'm gonna give is black. So you can see now there are four paragraphs, but one paragraph is outside the division. So what I have used here, I have used the descendant selector, and I'm telling that only the descendants of the P, that is the direct descendants of the P, will be having the background color to be black. So this is how you can use your descendant selector. So these are the three selectors that we have. Next, we have the class selector. Now, what do you mean by this class selector? Now, for example, you had multiple paragraphs, right? For example, there were multiple paragraphs, but I don't want the same thing to be have these two paragraphs to have the same color. So in that time, or you may don't want them to have the same font family, or you don't want them to have the same sizes. At that time, what happens? You can use your class selectors. Now, what do you mean by class? Always, whenever you are writing your HTML tag, inside your HTML tag, when you're writing the paragraph tag, all you need to do is you need to write class is equals. You need to give the name of that particular class. Now I have given ABC over here, and then you need to continue your paragraph and close your paragraph. Now whatever the class name will be there, before that class name you just have to add a small dot, and then you need to write the class name, and then you have to give the properties that you want to give. So this is known as class selector, and with the help of this you can also discriminate between your two paragraphs or your two elements which should not be similar. In the same way, you also have one more selector that is called as ID selector. In the same way, how you have written it here as class, always you need to write here as, if you're using ID, you need to write it as ID. I'll be writing EFG, and I'll write the paragraph and I'll close the particular paragraph. So when you write like this, what happens? And when you use your ID selector, you need to use it as hash. You need to specify it as hash. Now hash means ID, dot means class. Class Classes are normally used in your CSS, whereas IDs are used for your scripting languages. Whenever you want to attach certain scripting to that particular element, you use your IDs usually. But you can also use them for your CSS. It's not a mistake. And next you have child selector. Just like your descendant selector. Let us see these three practically. We have seen the descendant selector. Next we have the class selectors here. What I'm gonna do is, for this particular, I'm going to use class is equals to ABC. Save it. And for this paragraph, I'm going to use ID is equals to, you can give anything. Here, your girlfriend name, your boyfriend name, anything. EFG. I'll save it. Now go back to your styles. I'll be using, whenever you're using class, you should always precede it with a dot, ABC, and I'll give font size large. Now you can see that only the first paragraph is having the font size as large. Next, if it is ID selector, EFG, now I'm going to give font style for this, italic. Now you can see only the second paragraph is having the italic styling. Next, you have attribute selector. Now, what is this attribute selector? What about the input tags that you have added? What about the text inside those input tags that you want to change? If you want to change those, you have to write input, type, text, or whichever, if it is radio, if it is a checkbox, anything that is there. Then you have color is to violet. Now, let us see this. Let us change it and see. Let me add an input box over here. Input type is equals to text. You have the first name. Inside this, if you write it, now just see it as a normal black in color. Now let us change the color, what we are going to write inside that. For that you have input and you need to add type is equals to text. And then we are going to give the color for that. Save it. Now whenever I'm going to type anything, now you can see that it is get printed in the violet color. So this is how you can use your selectors. Then the final one is the grouping selector. Now you can group multiple selectors together if you want to give them the same properties. Now for example, if you have H1 paragraph and H2 to have the same color, so you can just give the color is equals to red. In the similar way, if you have multiple classes to group, so A, B, C, so this is an ID. If you want to group a class with an ID, you can also do that. And also you can give the same names for your ID and the class, provided it should not be the same type of selector. And then for example, if it is hash Rohit, hash honey, so if these are the names that are given to those particular elements, then you can combine those particular elements or group those particular elements and give the select or and give the properties for them. This is all for today's video. Meet you again in the next video with some more concepts of CSS. Till then, keep learning. Stay tuned. Bye bye.